What I should do now is disable the waiting room and
Mhm. Akua, are you going to talk to them about what speculative poetry is in case we have some people who are new to it, the genre?
I hadn't planned to,
Oh,
and I'll tell you why, because I do it every week.
oh, okay.
And so for me, it's okay. Hold on a sec. Hmm. Thank you, everyone, for your patience. And I would like to welcome you all to the fourth reading in the Speculative Sundays Poetry Reading Series, where every other week you can hear the poetry of possibilities. We are now live on Facebook via Zoom. I'm Akua Leslie Hope, and I'm speaking to you from the ancestral land of the Onondaga, also known as the Seneca, keepers of the Western Door in the Southern Finger Lakes region of New York State. I'm delighted to say this week that this series is supported in part by the Artist Development Grant Program administered by the Arts Council of the Southern Finger Lakes and funded by the Community Foundation of Elmira Corning and the Finger Lakes. But my delight doesn't end there. It extends to introducing Pathmaker, Waymaker, Soul Shaker, Mind Quaker, Thought Innovator, Sheree Renée Thomas. Sheree Renée Thomas is an award-winning fiction writer, poet, and editor whose work is inspired by myth, folklore, natural science, and Mississippi Delta conjure. Nine Bar Blues, da, 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 Stories from an Ancient Future is her fiction debut. She's also the author of two multi-genre hybrid collections, Sleeping Under the Tree of Life, long listed for the 2016 Otherwise Award and honored with a Publisher's Weekly Starred Review, and Shotgun Lullabies.
Okay. Mhm.
She edited the world fantasy winning, groundbreaking people, Black speculative fiction anthologies, Dark Matter. She's the first to introduce W.E.B. Du Bois's science fiction short stories. A Cave Canem Poetry Fellow, her work is widely anthologized and appears in The Big Book of Modern Fantasy, Ghost Fishing, the Echo Justice Poetry Anthology, The Ringing Ear, Bum Rush the Page, a Deaf Poetry Jam, The Moment of Change, Feminist Speculative Poetry, Fireside Quarterly, Strange Horizons, Hurricane Blues, Ink Scrawl, Mythic Delirium, Essence Magazine, and Revise the Psalm, a celebration of Gwendolyn Brooks, among others. Her essays appear in the New York Times and other publications. She's the associate editor of the historic Black arts literary journal, Obsidian. She was recently honored as a 2020 World Fantasy Award finalist in the Special Award Professional category for her many contributions to the genre. Welcome, Sheree. Thank you for being.
Thank you, Akua. I think it's a wonderful, wonderful thing you created for us poets who are in the interstitial areas of science fiction, fantasy, horror. Um, so it's really lovely to be a part of this series, all these great poets you have, and also just to see you. So thank you. I'm wearing my steampunk
Yeah.
helmet today because on Sundays I'm usually chilling and relaxing and not working. Um, So in a whole different energy level. So you're catching me in my silly mode and you're just gonna have to deal. All right. All right. So I'm gonna take it off so I can actually see, because when you wear this, yeah, I love steampunk too, Denise. When you wear it, it's like you're a bumblebee. You see the world very, very differently. Everything is magnified. So I'm going to be reading some new poems and some poems that are from the collections that Akua already mentioned. I'm going to read from a longer work, and then I'm going to let you go on and enjoy the rest of your beautiful Sunday. Is that okay? All right. All righty. So let me start off with Eartha Kitt, because I like Eartha Kitt. Eartha Kitt reflects on Catwoman. Some men always wanted to lay me down, but he never stayed to pick me up again. So I learned to make fear my friend, made a temple of bone, my mind hard-backed pews, regret the ceiling of my skull. I scaled the night, my mouth full of the cathedral sky. I spoke in tongues, back arch and leather shine, blood claw and tooth divine. I wrapped my tail around the throat of desire. Many tried to hollow my spirit, usher their hungers into the bowl of my brain, spilling their need like blood-stained wine against the fabric of my full altar. But I refused their offerings. Still, when the moon's shimmer casts her spell over the city's devilish light, I walk back through the shadowed walls of reverie, scrape and scratch the old wounds, and purr just to hear myself remember and bleed. All right. Miss Eartha Kitt had a lot to tell us about her journey in life. It's one of the most fascinating, powerful women that I know of. And my first introduction to her was not through her civil rights work and commitment, but it was through, of course, her iconic character as Catwoman, which I watched on the weekends with my grandmother. We would watch Batman, George Reeves. Changeling. To reach into the sea of a small brown hen, to see the moon swim in the black mirror of river, child of mandrake, seed of yellow gourd, crystal of white snow. I hold you in my arms, the last figment of an embryonic dream, where the tides rush backwards and water is pulled by the ancient scales of memory. I scavenge the forest floor for bloody roots and endless knots, dance round a ring of redwoods in search of a widening place from which to enter this world or the next, where we can lay the burden down, exchange one pain for another's joy, for doubts to draw themselves into the curled shells of years, where bad memories melt into the icy lakes of swift waters, the wintry sum of all our tears. If there is darkness, this is after the Dora Milaje. The women carry broad axes, side by side, they come singing spear to spear, iron striking cottonwood, cotton humming back, the waters churn, the pump and shuttle sweep the warp like waves against greenlit shores. They come from the heart of it, each stroke covering the space between, from where they were torn to where they trained together to where they must go. The women in step see only the next woman's back. Together they live the story, a story of blood, the rising tide of iron, slicing its way through flesh. If the sky's dark fabric is pierced by stars, they sing the songs of wombs, of the earth giving birth to herself, of herself giving birth to earth. There among the green, twisting, fertile things, they buzz with seeing. They blink back, feeling the wind and their weight of flat toes pressing into darkness, into the rhythms of the earth. They step, come, sing together, share the same breath, share the same death. The world is vast and wild, and they travel, wary but with no fear, as they know none have ever traveled alone in it. Tethered first to mothers, now they are tethered to themselves, to the sisterly beat pulse, pulsing in the next woman's heart. If there is darkness, they sing the song of light. They sing the song of wombs that will never birth anything but tomorrow. All righty. How are you doing out there? All right. All right. You got to give me some energy. Got to give me some energy. All right. Thank you. All right. Appreciate it. Yeah. Yeah. You got us on these Zooms. You're in a Zoom. We're in different places, different
We'll
zones.
put the faces on then.
Need some energy.
Okay. Okay. It's
All right.
wonderful. It's
Yeah, because I'm
wonderful.
not sitting in a bookstore or in your living room with our cocktails and our cheese and great, looking at your beautiful shining faces. I'm looking at myself and I see myself every day. All right. All right, Jackie, that's what I'm talking about. Give me some energy. All right. All right. Let's see. All right. I'm loving it. Nothing but tomorrow. All right. I'm going to read from a poem that was commissioned by Smith College, which I was very honored to put some thoughts to paper. And in the beginning, I want to recognize and honor the poets whose words inspired these words. And perhaps you may hear the fraction of a fraction of a fraction of an echo of these brilliant poets, which I could never, ever reach, but I'm always growing, climbing, dreaming. This poem is called Botanica. I sing the earth in 4 movements. And this is after Ntozake Shonge, Linda Hogan, Sonia Sanchez, and I. The first part is called Sistren, a calling. She woke 93 million miles from herself, and silence did not hold her tongue. Shoulders rising from darkened waters, her voice rang out on the skin of air. She began with lovers, 2 on the swept floor of earth. She was what passed between them. She was what breathed inside them. She was a sweet gourd too heavy and full of her own wet seed. Grandmama God kept the red trick bag, the blood-stained cloth that held her navel string, so she wouldn't forget the other women she lived inside before time was ruined. So she would not forget the other lives that lived inside the river before its waters were ruined. Daughters of Nan, the first sister, walked the Mother River's banks and listened, each soul whispering her name. Her name was the beginning of hunger. Her name was the curiosity they called sin. Desire was in that jackball bag of ribs and bones, and want, the origins of betrayal, but there was forgiveness too. The dry seeds of a serpent's rattle that could shake loose a killing, shake hooray a healing. She stood naked and painted herself paint blue, color of the old ways, a blue hand across her blue-black face, 7 axes in a circle of sun. She danced counterclockwise in the ceremony of wayward daughters, in the ritual of those who must birth themselves again and again and again. She danced a river of sighs, the dance to call the spirits up, the ones wrapped in night's black skin, the ones whose palms rise to the stars, the lifelines wrapped all around their wrists. Her spirit disappeared inside its dance. She is the wild one that lives in the palm of the river. She is the marigold in winter, the black dahlia of a hard frost spring. She is the wild one, the dandelion that wants to fly away from herself. She is the wild one who fights to be her one true, authentic self. At night, she drowns and wakes, her painted blue skin beneath the water. Her blue palms reach for me. I know the taste of her. Her hands reach through time and find the bare earth of me. I say her names, earth calling water. She is my mother. She's my daughter. She is your mother. She is your daughter. She is no one's mother. She is no one's daughter. She came from a womb. She has no womb. She is all of us. She is none of us. She is the swept earth calling the river sister. She is the one who whispers, sense, one who says, resist. She is the one who will always persist. She is the one. She is the flow.
Mm, 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 mm. Yeah.
Flow. A woman lying in water becomes herself. But where does water grow? Water grew between lands that once lay together as one. That was the first separation, the first betrayal, where the stories inside each grain of sand, older than we are, came apart, holding their secrets silent, not even a trace, not even a trace of the first ones, of that first love. No white jawbone turning over in the sun, and the great salt of blood that was eaten, no finger the bone, no splitter of leg or thigh, a hollow temple. After exile, legs and arms no longer trapped her. After exile, she journeyed far, taking the salt of years with her. How does water survive? How does it strip a world to its bones? How does it dance without feet, sing without voice, hold with no hands, and follow the night shining moon without a single eye? What does water see? Water go when it is borne up into the endless sky, its flow never ceasing. The flow never ceasing. Earth's drum has fallen down, but in our arms the sun is fire held still. The world breathes through water. Dark earth passes like light through us. Amber shadows cut through the sky. On nights like this, we promise things, and when dawn comes, we remember just the sound of those dreams. As lovers, we rest on the dark trunks of trees we plant over and over again. We embroider lilies and moonstones in our sleep. Our minds race for solutions to ancient wars, grief more ancient than any of us. We know the future is not inevitable. It will burst from the soil we till now, from the seeds we hold in open palms, from the bury and unbury over and over again. How does hope survive? How does it strip a faithless world to its bones? How does it dance without feet, sing without voice, hold flowers with no hands, and follow the unknowable night? A shining future yet to be born, a space for verdant life not seen by a single eye. What does hope see? Where does hope go when it is borne up with its sisters into the endless sky, its flow never ceasing, when it is carried away by a river of stars, called back into the dark, an ancient new beginning, an arc of generations. Arc of generations. How comforting. The clarion call of space. It carried us like water, like scattered seeds of gourds. We prayed the whole century night. It carried us, our tongues spinning in spirals, tripping over the shells and the saints. We feared the darkness would rise up like a great beast, send us flying into oblivion to drown in the moonlight, the stars our only witness. We feared the sisters we left below would forget our names, bury our navel strings in strange places no longer thought of. We feared there would be no trees left to hold the root of our understanding. And in our fear, we longed for even the bloody trees that held our Black bodies sway back and crooning. We longed for sleek fires, the familiar face of burnt out dreams. But that was just a dark tale we told ourselves, frightened in the hollow of sleep. Great Grandmama God has lit up the green trails of freedom. We live in a greenhouse now. Voices rocked by weeds, by lilacs. We live in a greenhouse now. We have learned a new way of walking, of talking. We live in a greenhouse now, which is to say the old way. We are the sweet black fire of dreams. We sail under a soprano sky. We wake 93 million miles from our old selves. And silence does not hold our tongues. Our shoulders rise from darkened waters of the past. Our voices ring out a new defying gravity. As sistren, we know our calling. Blues, blues, blues for the new green world we live in. We began as lovers, generations on the swept floor of earth. We are what passed between the old time and the next. We are what breathes inside all of life. We are our own. We are the light that never needed an Eden. We are the light that is its own tree, its own sun. We are the sweet gourd too heavy for the vine. And we sing because we are full. We sing because we are ripe, full of our own wet seed. We sing because we are sistrins, sistrins of tomorrow. We sing the songs. We sing the songs of earth. Thank you. Thank you.
Mm, 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 mm. Woof.
Thank you. That was I Sing the Earth.
Mm,
Oh, thank you. Thank you. Thank you. I'm always gonna give you a little and a little something. uh,
thank you. Mm,
thank you.
mm.
Thank you. Yeah. I have been writing poetry off and on for many years, but when I was a child, I believed I had some other stories about poetry. I guess it was because of how it was initially introduced to me. I didn't think poetry was for a girl like me. I thought it was for another people, another generation. The poems, they didn't connect to um, the worlds that I knew, the people that I knew. It didn't have the same music of my family or my ancestors or any of the neighbors around me. And so I thought poetry was a separate thing, an art for another people. It took some time and reading other works um, for me to recognize that poetry is an art form that is ours as well. I didn't see the poetry in our psalms. I didn't see the poetry in our hymns and the music. That was a separate thing for me. Poetry represented some kind of sterile place, you know, with archaic language and images that were from another time. But then I started to hear, of course, the poetry of the Black arts movement. I began to hear the poets, not just the AXO poems that people perform, you know, for the NAACP youth contest, you know, where we're all, singing of dreams deferred and such. Or every now and then you might hear a "We Real Cool," right, from Gwendolyn Brooks. But I began to hear other kinds of poems and poems that were sharply critical of the world that was around these artists, and that pulled me in because then they were saying things that resonated with me. And it wasn't just about the music, but it was about the message and the story as well. And they made me recognize very early when I got those works that this is our form too, right? So the poets that that I honor in the beginning of that poem are poets whose works were particularly important to me in that development. And I remember in particular, it made me recognize that root work, conjure, and hoodoo were a natural part of our heritage and not something to be in the dark or be ashamed. Um, and so I loved it. I love the sensuality of her poems. Of course, I love the compassion and the fierce truth telling that was in Sonia's works in particular. I helped me to recognize that anger is a valid emotion as well. She had a fierce, powerful rage in some of her poems. And I really needed to see that at the time when I was reading her work. So I try because I don't know if she's being taught enough. Linda Hogan showed me that in indigenous communities, First Nations are present, 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 dynamic, 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 and not a thing of the past. They are here with us, influencing the world, part of the world, taking world, guiding us as usual, thankless work that they are doing in their art, and that it needs to be continuously read, studied, discussed,
Yes.
celebrated, uplifted. So those are those totems. One of the totems are in this group, so I won't even. She knows who she is, Miss Jacqueline Johnson,
Mm,
who
mhm.
just a powerful, powerful poet and a woman of many, many talents. And I am always ever grateful for her words and any of the art that she shares with us. And this is a tremendous teacher as well. So just wanted to say that. So what's up with the what's up? Hopefully I didn't go too long. Try to keep it right in our.
No. Oh, are you stopping? Oh
Oh,
my
I
God.
thought we were 30 minutes.
Oh,
Okay.
your reading part. And then we have time to chat with you. So,
Okay.
all right.
Okay.
Can we get one or two more pieces, please?
Oh, absolutely. Now, you know, you don't have to tell a poet that.
Oh, thank you.
You
Thank
usually have to tell
you.
a poet to chill.
Oh, thank you.
I get the feeling themselves, and they can
Oh,
go
I
on
like
and
that feeling. Go with that feeling.
on. We always got a poem for you.
Thank you.
um, I'll read a poem that I wrote after I read some essays about moths. Uh, which is weird, but that's where it came from. All right. This is called Reunion. The years stain our faces, dark as the wet trunks of trees. And water the world breathes in silt and fish. Our blood changes from cold to warm. Yellow bones of spirit shine from behind wide eyes. Wake up sleepy cicadas whose dry skins rest upon the belly of trees. We stretch and open the soft parts of ourselves, split like old souls, pecan shells, apart where weary and worry on our backs like old women wear years, grace, and resignation. Yes, I am here. Yes, I am still here. I survive. I thrive. We are all here. Something breathes here, and all the stars between. Under sleepy skies, we rise from the damp soil. Cool waters, women awake, girls awake, boys awake, men awake, the in-between and the beyond awake. The scales of our lives rise and fall between joy and our laughter together. Our laughter is liquid amber, washed upon the shore of memory. That's Reunion.
Would you do me a favor
Mhm.
and read the last two lines because there was a glitch? I don't know if other people had it, but the last two lines sort of disappeared.
Okay. The scales of our lives rise and fall between joy and our laughter together as liquid amber washed upon the shore of shared memory.
Yes, thank you. Thank you.
Mm-mm. Let me do Mama River. Mama River washes her hair dark as the mirror sky. Between her round palms, she rubs it with indigo and black silk, twisting the thick strands as if starting a slow, slow fire. Hair like braided molasses, like split fish ends, stuck and formed water lily poppies, coiled and poisonous as dark mouthed snakes, roots deep as black holed flowers in her red clay garden, tangled knots along her watery banks, the ends hard cattails, pussy willows, and bent Sunday morning palms. Her crown puffy as rain-soaked mushrooms, black dandelions, sweet as honeysuckle nectar, her kitchen like cypress tree roots. I sleep on the other bank, one hand trailing in the water's fingers bent, the other hand combing Mama River's windblown hair, her head resting in my lap, the other half of the world.
Mm, 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 mm.
You read Root Work. My mom likes this poem, so I read this for Mama. This is where I had my vision, sitting between Mama's legs, the braided channels of our minds linked like the thick plaits of her hair.
Mm.
She grasped in her nimble hands and oiled with coconut scented grease. This is where I bent my crown low, bow beneath the ancient algorithms passed down from generations, her hands hovering around my head like brown cymbals, the roar of teeth combing through wave upon wave of electric black locks, the humming sound, another score to get used to. Back then, Mama was Moses, her great conductor hands parting my hair like the Red Sea, She was high bark and fat green seeds. She was red cinnamon dark and steady knees. I hold still while she scratches the surface of my innermost thoughts, brushing aside the doubts and fears with the back of her black comb. They fall like gray snowflakes across the shifting sky, and when she is done braiding all the disparate, her eyes swallow me whole, and her voice splits the air with her hushed breath, that one shape-shifting word, beautiful. Mhm.
Oh, 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 thank you. Thank you.
My mama.
I can see why your mother would love that. Shape
Yeah.
shape shifting word. Are
Mhm.
there questions for Sheree? And if you would put them in the chat or raise your hand and I'll unmute you. Um, I you asked at the beginning if I talked about definitions of speculative poetry, and so I wondered why. But I will say this for all the listeners. I call speculative poetry the poetry of possibilities. Speculative is an umbrella term that includes, and I'm going to glance down because what it includes is multiple and many. It's a house of many rooms. It includes science fiction, fantasy, folklore, mythology, fairy tales, horror, steampunk, cyberpunk, steampunk, sword and soul, sword and sorcery, and all the things you can think of that are related. Other terms. It includes weird, it includes slipstream, it includes fabulism. All of those are under the umbrella or in the house of the speculative. So, Sheree, do you
Uh-huh.
have particular rooms in the house that you like to occupy?
Um, I love to be in the fantasy realm of it. Um, I feel like I enjoy that. I probably need to enter the science fictional rooms more often,
Mm, mm,
more directly. But those usually go into stories rather than poems, if that
mm,
makes any sense.
mhm.
Um, so that's those are the eras. Sometimes I'm in the scary rooms.
The
Or
horror rooms, or
yes,
yeah.
yeah. Sometimes I'm there. Um, but mostly in the area of myth and in the area of
We hear the myth. It's wonderful. I love the myth.
yeah, that's usually where I end up.
Hmm.
Um, and I find that the poetry that I read explores that as well. So, so those are the kind of places I go. Ooh,
So you've got a couple of questions
okay.
um, from Michael McAfee.
Mhm.
How has your performance style evolved?
Mm, has I mean, I don't really know. I haven't been really performing. I mean, um, most of the work I do is on the page, and then it's in the work. How it people respond to it, I don't even often see. This is probably the most I've ever been in front of anyone in my um, during this pandemic because of and also because people are like, oh, okay, I don't have to pay for a plane ticket and a hotel and for you know, I can have you tune in from your living room or whatever. So I'm, getting all of these amazing wonderful invitations. I also had my first short all fiction all prose collection that came out this summer, so that is another thing. But in terms of evolution, I'm not a spoken word poet or what have you. which is like, to me, the best of all worlds, because the best ones, of course, the work works on the page beautifully, and then they bring it to life with their amazing performances, right?
Mhm.
Memorized and everything, choreography and all that. And so that's the best of all worlds. That, my friends, is not my lane. It's not my lane. But I guess from when I began sharing my work, I went from, and Jackie's probably a witness of this, from blacking out and not remembering the performance because I was so anxious and nervous.
Mm.
I remember doing a reading with Veronica Golos at the
Whoa, I know her.
YMCA,
Yes.
and think it was our a Valentine's Day um, reading, and I was so nervous. I honestly don't remember
Mm.
much detail from it. Apparently, it went well, but I wouldn't. I have no conscious memory of it
Mm.
because I was just that um, nervous about it.
Nervous.
And then I remember talking at some point to Linda Addison, the wonderful poet Linda Addison, and we talked about being nervous and everything. And I asked if she was still nervous when she does poems, and just a little bit. But she talked about working with Dallas, another amazing writer who helped her with her performances. She has an amazing presence
Mm.
when she reads, and her voice is just like cool, smooth water. I love it.
Mm.
And so between watching Linda and hearing what like the jazz refrains of Jacqueline Johnson and others, I got a little more comfortable doing a little bit more in my readings, but not to the point where I'm going on tour with Def Poetry Jam or anything like that. Though I was in the Def Poetry Jam book.
Yes,
So,
you were. Yes, you were. Here's
so
another question. What are
yeah.
some of your sci-fi and poetry influences from Damien Jerry?
Oh, sci-fi and poetry. I don't know if I have sci-fi poetry influences. I'm kind of out here floating in my own ship, if that makes any sense. Um,
It does to me.
yeah. I wouldn't say that I'm influenced by other science fiction poets. Um, I'm coming in it from my own area. And in fact, it's not even a term that I had claimed for myself. Someone else said, "Oh, you're doing science fiction poetry." And I was like, "Oh, I
Ah, ah.
am." Because I was just reading everyone, and then working very hard to write um, poems from my voice, from my point of view on the planet in this particular time. And so I wouldn't say that I have science fiction influences in terms for poetry. Yeah. For fiction, that's another conversation, definitely, but not for poetry.
What are your poetic influences? Because I
Oh,
don't
well,
know if he meant them together. Yes,
yeah,
in
I
fact,
got
he just clarified, he did mean them separately. So
oh,
sorry,
okay.
sorry, Damien. I'm
Oh,
sorry.
sorry. Oh, for well, I mentioned for poetry, of course. Well, I love Wanda Coleman, Intozaki Shonge, of course.
Mm,
Um, Lucille Clifton, uh,
yes,
most definitely. Uh, uh,
I got to
Joy
meet him in
Harjo,
Africana.
uh, um, Eduardo Galeano,
Mm.
um, just who else have I been reading? Time I read their words, I'm just like, yay. But those are the main poets
Mhm.
that I really love. I'm trying to think of some like younger poets that I really like. And I'm reading everybody, and they're cool. They're cool, and I'm just trying to keeping the rhythms of it.
Mhm.
Um, because it's a thing, and I don't know, that's kind of controversial when we talk about poetry, because poetry comes from the heart, and it comes from your journey and your observations. Like any other writer, you're observing the world and recording your take on it through your particular lens. um some of the work I enjoy because of I feel like the courage that they put on the page. They're telling so much of their business that I find that very interesting, and I respect and appreciate that. You know, telling hard stories, traumas and things like that on the page. And there's a lot of poets right now. Of course, I'm blanking out. I should have prepared for that question. Who are you reading? But
I'm not going to stick you to it because it's a question I often just refuse to answer.
yeah.
And you can guess why, because whenever you leave anyone out, then
Your
you
feelings are hurt and you get stank messages on the side. Oh, so you like so and
oh,
so.
okay, all right, yes. So,
No.
so I
Also, if you say anything, then they
someone
take
else asked that
it.
question. That wasn't me. So just
Yeah,
know
I know you did. I'm just
that.
yeah. So I will say I like the truth taking, the truth telling that people are doing. And they've always done that, but I think it's a whole nother level right now
Mhm.
of that
Of reveal.
of reveal. Yeah. Um, and it's very interesting how the poem is evolving on the page, I guess.
I wanted you to speak to for a moment because you started to and then you stopped yourself. Um, but the whole idea of mythology, first of all, it both makes me want to cry and laugh and shout at the same time. That there is a generation that has said, we have a mythology, we have various ethnicities, and my portion of the Black diaspora and experience has folklore and mythologies that are worthy of encoding and celebrating and elevating and holding forth. And I wanted you to just speak to that for a moment because you mentioned hoodoo and conjure also as part of what's in the narratives that you are bringing forth and creating.
Mm. Um, I guess lately I've been feeling a bit defensive on certain things. I'll say this. In Afrofuturism, in the Black speculative arts arena, or whatever real estate term that you choose to use right now, there seems to be a thread. Let's see how I can say this diplomatically. There seems to be a school of thought or an assumption that if you are African American or Black American or whatever the term you want to use in the 21st century today, you do not have access to Africa. You don't have access to the mythologies or the language or anything that is Africa. You are some other anomaly that is out here calling yourself African American, and yet you are not of Africa, or you don't have any connection to that. And I categorically refuse and rebuke that, because when I look at our culture, I see what we call the African retentions, right?
Retention.
I see
Yes,
the African retentions in the language. I
yes.
see it in our dance. I see it in the way that we approach our religion and spirituality. I
Mhm.
see it in almost everything that we do. And so for you, people who, let's see, or have no problems reaching and taking the creations that come from these anomalies, these Black American, these African Americans, and remixing and refreaking it and reimagining it in your context. And there it is, like the rest of the world, because almost everything that we create and innovate gets mainstreamed and spread all around the globe, right? And then presented back to us as if we didn't create it in the first place, right? So I can get specific, but I think you. And so I find that this is like a two-way door that's very problematic. And in the seeds of it, there's this thread of anti-Black Americanism, where the things that are not culture, and yet, like, what we create is not culture, apparently. We don't have a culture. We don't have myths, apparently. I was on observing a thread online where they went in a whole 200 comments going back and forth about whether or not African Americans have their own mythology, which was news to some of us that we didn't.
Wow.
Um, you know, amazing, astonishing news.
Yes.
And I just find that fascinating. So yes, some of my work is a reclamation of something that is not a dead thing, but a dynamic living thing that exists all around you. And it's also exists in a form that is separate from the marketeering that often is the public face of it. You know, the oil potions and money spells and whatever else the woman in California has managed to monetize and promote. That's not the thing. And
the teleoracles.
Exactly. And if you're looking for it, you see the evidence of it throughout our history here. You see it throughout our history. So some of the work and the other writers that I know they're doing the work of reclamation and continuing a line, a thread. And some of it is not coming out of books. It's coming out of actual lived experience. And the work is an apprenticeship. It's a hand of people. It's an apprenticeship. It's a living force, and it needs to be respected, and not just as set dressing, and not just as props. But that's a whole nother conversation.
Another conversation. We've got another question, and this question is quite lovely because I've heard you speak to this very question. So Michael McAfee, I think you're going to enjoy her answer. He asks, this is the first he's heard of W.E.B. Du Bois's science fiction work. So really, you got to get dark matter. How did you come across it? She's got a great story.
How do I come across it? It was sitting on my shelf. Sitting on my shelf in a collection called Dark Water, along with his prayers that he had written, along with the romances that he had written. It was there. And when I started thinking about this project, I began to think about, okay, they think we don't exist, which means they're not seeing, we're here, but they're not seeing us, right? When they say that there are only 2 writers who are science fiction writers, they're looking, one, at mainstream publishers for something that is all through our culture in many different mediums, not just in stories, but in the music and other things as well. So I just started looking at it through a different lens. What do I have right now on my shelf that is speculative fiction? And I just started pulling those things off. That included Gloria Naylor, that included Alice Walker, that included Toni Morrison, that included a lot of other works that we weren't always discussing as such. And maybe those writers themselves wouldn't necessarily discuss it as work as such, but that was those were the tools and the lens that they were using in the work that they were writing. And when I looked through the W.E. Du Bois collection, I was like, I know I read a classic science fiction story because I remember watching a Hollywood movie and thinking, this Harry Belafonte in it, I wonder if it was inspired by this story by W.E. Du Bois, because they didn't really credit the writer, where the story came from. And I think that was Between the Devil and Me or something. But anyway, Harry Belafonte and another actress, they were the only 2 people they thought they were.
Ingrid Stevens, or what?
That sounds right. I can look it up really quickly.
Yeah.
But
the farmer's daughter, the woman who played the farmer's daughter was the woman, and they were the only 2 people left on Earth until
they found, a mob. And I was like, that is literally the comment, right down to the last line.
The world, the devil in the flesh, Michael McAfee says. Thank you.
Yeah.
And what was her name, Michael, if you knew? Ingrid Stevenson. I always get it. I loved her in the Twilight Zone. Sorry. Go ahead. Inger. Thank you. Inger Stevens. Thank you. Yes, okay. Denise. That's it.
Yeah.
Brain trust. Love it.
Yeah. Yeah. So I just started pulling things off the shelf, and I that's how I got Amira Baraka. That's how I got
Mm.
Ishmael Reed. That's who was also doing you know, what he was calling neo hoodoo as
Mm.
well. And when you think about it, and then his work also was, I mean, I don't know if he'll say it, I can say it. I feel like Mel Blanc just straight up ripped his work. Um,
Mm.
Yellowback Radio broke down,
Thrown down.
Blazing Saddles. that's that's what it was.
Mhm.
Um, um, but I don't think he won that legal case, but that's what it was.
Mm.
Um, so yeah, so it wasn't to me, it wasn't I mean, even though I was surprised that no one else had done that. I wasn't really surprised because there's such a snobbery in the literary community looking down on genre. So they cherry pick the works
Mhm.
of the writers that they like, and they want to say this is literature with a capital L, and it's straight up science fiction. Um, so they pick and choose those writers, and they just say, oh, this is worthy of being discussed over here. And so I could see them, because of those blinders, they wouldn't necessarily see a work by W.E. Du Bois as being science fiction, because he's supposed to be the civil rights
Guy, yes.
activist,
Right.
not even doing fiction or any of that other work, which he did all through his career, from what I can tell. And in fact, they found not only the first two that I found, The Comet and Jesus Christ and Texas, but they found others in his archives. And so who knows what other writers we have out there who may also have works that were, not discussed or not published because it was genre work. Charles Chestnut, yes, is in Dark Matter. Yep, I have the Conjure Woman's work in there. Yeah. Yeah. And there were some other writers that I didn't put in there just because it wouldn't be a fun reading experience. At least I didn't think so. They are proto science fiction writers, but it's that classic 19th century, way of writing about the novel, and there wasn't a natural excerpt to pull from it that would be a fun reading experience for a person who is expecting to read an anthology of short stories. So I didn't include those stories. Yeah. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you, Michael. Thank you.
Any other questions?
Yeah.
Well, this has been a marvelous, wonderful, amazing time.
Two-headed doctoring. Anna, what do you mean?
I wasn't going to ask her. I'm going to ask her. But okay, you're brave. Go ahead, Sheree.
I'm trying to get into the question. Yes, 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 yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, I got it now. Who do that? Who do that? Yeah.
Activism is speculative fiction. It absolutely is. It is, because you're imagining what doesn't exist right now. It's not the impossible, because all of this is possible. We just have to have the willpower to do it. So
Absolutely.
So
Thank you. Yes.
mhm.
Thank you so much. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you for your way making. Thank you for your path breaking. Thank you for your energy, your fire, your insight, your continuance, your being. I'm grateful that you're on this plane the same time I am. It makes things absolutely wonderful. I'm way older than you, and I want to be like you when I grow up. So thank you so much for coming, and thank you, audience, for being here. Please continue to attend and support speculative poetry in its many guises. Listen and read. We told you about Sheree's books, and maybe I don't mean to be remiss. We should put your um, web address, if you would, in the chat. Can you do that, or say it to me and I'll type it in?
You can find me at www.ShereeReneeThomas.com. And you can find my new book, 9 Bar Blues, Stories from an Ancient Future, anywhere books are sold.
Oh, you type faster than me. I was doing it too. Good, good.
And yeah,
I misspelled it. So
from Third Man Books. And it's my
you.
first all fiction collection.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone. Stay well, stay safe, know joy, and bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye. Thank
Have
you.
a great Halloween.
Thank you. Thank you.
See you in the multiverse.
Yes, yes.
Bye.
Bye.